You're scrolling through property listings at midnight, and every house that isn't on the verge of falling apart is priced at $500,000. The kitchen still has laminate countertops straight out of 2003. The carpet is beige. There's fake wood paneling in the basement. And the listing agent somehow has the nerve to label it a starter home. Meanwhile, you're sitting there calculating your salary in your head, wondering whether you missed some massive promotion, or whether the entire housing market has completely lost touch with reality. Spoiler, it's not you, it's the math. And the math is merciless. Today, we're going to do something that makes real estate agents uncomfortable. We're going to figure out who can actually afford a $500,000 house in 2026. Not who the bank is willing to approve for a loan, but who can truly afford it without turning their life into a non-stop financial anxiety simulator. Because there's a huge difference between qualifying for a mortgage and being able to sleep peacefully after signing the paperwork. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. In many US markets right now, $500,000 is the entry point. That doesn't buy you a mansion. It buys you a 1,200 square foot box with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a yard barely larger than a beach towel. In places like Denver, Austin, or anywhere within commuting distance of a major metropolitan area, $500,000 is what ordinary people are expected to somehow produce for an ordinary house. The median household income in America is roughly $84,000, so we're expecting households earning $84,000 a year to purchase homes that cost 6 times their annual income. If that sounds absurd to you, congratulations, you're paying attention. But everywhere you turn, people say it's doable. The mortgage broker tells you you're approved. Your parents bought a house on less. Some influencer on TikTok is flipping homes with 0 money down. So what's the issue? The issue is that people are misleading you about what affordable really means. Let's begin with the down payment, because that's where most people's homeownership dreams collapse. The traditional rule has always been 20% down. On a $500,000 house, that's $100,000 in cash. Let's repeat that. $100,000. The median savings account balance in America is about $8,000. That doesn't mean you're slightly short. It means you're short by $92,000. And before you say you'll just save it, let's do that math as well. If you earn $84,000 per year and manage to save 10% of your gross income, which almost no one does, you'd save $8,400 annually. At that pace, it would take you 12 years to accumulate the down payment. Assuming housing prices don't rise, which they absolutely will. So maybe you skip the 20% and put down 5% or 10% instead, like most buyers actually do. Congratulations, you've just unlocked a new monthly expense called PMI, private mortgage insurance. PMI is the fee you pay every month for the offense of not being wealthy enough to put 20% down. It's essentially a poverty penalty that runs between $200 and $400 per month depending on your loan. You're paying extra for insurance that protects the bank, not you, because they're worried you might default. You're already starting from a financially disadvantaged position. Now, let's examine the mortgage itself. Suppose you put down 10%, or $50,000 you somehow scrape together. That leaves a $450,000 loan. At current interest rates, somewhere between 6% and 7%, depending on credit, your monthly mortgage payment lands around $2,750 to $2,850. And that's only principal and interest. It doesn't include a single other expense required to actually live in the home. Now add property taxes. Depending on location, you're looking at $4,000 to $8,000 annually, roughly $500 per month on the conservative side. Then homeowners insurance, which has surged in recent years due to climate-related risks, increasing coverage costs. Expect another $250 to $350 monthly, depending on location and risk zones. Then maintenance, the expense everyone forgets about until the water heater bursts at 11 p.m. on a Sunday. The general rule is to budget 1% of the home's value annually for upkeep. On a $500,000 home, that's $5,000 per year, or about $417 per month. And don't forget, PMI add another $200 to $400. Let's total it up. Mortgage, $2,850. Property taxes, $500. Insurance, $300. Maintenance, $417. PMI, $300. That brings your total monthly housing cost to approximately $4,367. And that's assuming nothing major breaks. No new roof. No surprise HOA assessment, demanding $3,000 to repave the neighborhood. Here's where it gets interesting. Financial advisors recommend spending no more than 28% of gross monthly income on housing. Banks will approve you up to a 43% debt-to-income ratio. Let's reverse engineer this. If $4,367 represents 28% of your income, you'd need to earn about $187,000 per year. Even using the more lenient 43% guideline, you'd still need around $150,000 annually. Here's the punchline. Only about 10% to 20% of U.S. households earn $150,000 or more. That means roughly 80% of American households cannot comfortably afford a $500,000 home under reasonable financial standards. This isn't an opinion, it's simply math. But you might think, people are still buying these homes. Who are they? Some have dual high-income careers. Some have family wealth. Some are stretching themselves so thin that a single medical emergency or job loss would collapse their finances. Let's examine what that looks like in real life. Meet a hypothetical household, the Johnsons. Two working professionals earning a combined $160,000 annually, well above median income. Upper middle class. They should be comfortable, right after federal taxes, state taxes, FICA, and modest retirement contributions. Their take-home pay is around $9,500 per month. Subtract $4,367 for housing. They're left with $5,133 for everything else. 2 car payments, $800. Car insurance, $250. Gas, $300. Student loans, $600. Health insurance premiums, $400. Groceries, $800. Utilities, $450. Now they're down to $1,533, and we haven't accounted for clothing, entertainment, children's activities, repairs, medical copays, or basic quality of life, emergency savings, retirement, beyond a modest $401k. Good luck. This household is spending 46% of take-home pay on housing, not 28%, not 35%, nearly half. And they're not reckless spenders. They're not buying jet skis. They're just trying to live in what the market calls a normal house. Day to day, this feels like checking your bank balance before buying groceries. It feels like saying no to your child's field trip because $35 might be needed for car repairs. It feels like lying awake at 2 a.m., calculating whether you can afford new tires this month. One unexpected expense away from disaster. HVAC failure, $5,000. Car accident deductible, $1,000 on a credit card. Braces financing dental work like a vehicle. That's life at $160,000 income, with a $500,000 house. Now imagine $120,000, or $100,000, or the median $84,000. At median income, a $500,000 house isn't tight. It's not stretching. It's mathematically impossible without outside help or extreme financial risk. Yet the market doesn't care. Sellers list homes based on comparables. Banks approve loans within technical risk limits. Agents earn commissions on sales. No one in the transaction benefits from telling you you're about to financially suffocate. The system is built to get you into the house, not to ensure long-term sustainability. Once you sign and move in, you're locked in. You can't simply walk away 6 months later without wrecking your credit and losing your down payment. So people stay in homes they can't afford, in jobs they hate, watching savings disappear, wondering why the American dream feels like a nightmare. Here's the hard truth. For 70% to 80% of American households, a $500,000 home is not sustainably affordable. This isn't about laziness or poor planning. It's about a housing market disconnected from income reality. Since 1990, home prices have risen roughly 400%. Median incomes have risen around 180%. The math doesn't align. You cannot budget your way out of a structural affordability crisis. You cannot side hustle your way into a down payment while rent consumes 40% of your income. You cannot think your way into lower interest rates. What you can do is understand the numbers. Maybe you continue renting and invest the difference. Maybe you look at a $350,000 home. Maybe you accept that home ownership in your market isn't viable right now. There is no trophy for being house poor. Barely making your mortgage payment will erase any pride you felt receiving the keys. The real question isn't whether you qualify. It's whether owning the home genuinely improves your life, or simply transfers your income to a bank while you stress over taxes. If your household income is below $140,000 and you're eyeing a $500,000 house, stop. Ignore the mortgage broker. Ignore the agent. Ignore what's normal. The numbers don't care about feelings. And if you stretch anyway, month 1 is tight. Month 2, still manageable. Month 4, $800 brake repair on a credit card. Month 7, $3,500 AC repair, financed. Month 9, reduced work hours and suddenly you're short $600 monthly. Emergency fund. Never built. This is house poor. You technically own a home, though the bank truly owns it for 30 years, but you can't afford to live in it comfortably. Every expense is a crisis. Every decision is filtered through one question. Can we still make the mortgage? We've normalized this misery. We've rebranded financial strain as adult eating ramen because the mortgage consumed your paycheck. You're building equity, struggling to furnish half the house. Part of the journey. The math screams caution. Culture whispers buy anyway. Society says renting wastes money. But being unable to afford your mortgage wastes money with harsher consequences. So here's permission to do something radical. You don't have to play. You can look at $500,000, run the real numbers, and choose financial stability instead. Wealth isn't owning an unaffordable house. It's margin. It's consistent investing. It's not choosing between roof repairs and retirement contributions. It's sleeping without financial anxiety. Real wealth is freedom, not equity you can't access, because you're trapped by the very asset meant to enrich you. Banks profit from mortgages. Agents profit from transactions. Insurers profit from policies. None profit when you walk away. If you feel priced out, you're not failing. The system is failing you. A $500,000 house is not a starter home. It's not affordable at median income. It's not something to stretch for unless your income truly supports it. Run your real numbers. Include every cost. Be honest about income stability. If it doesn't work, walk away. There is no award for buying misery. Make decisions based on math, not social pressure. I'm not saying abandon homeownership forever. I'm saying abandon the illusion that a bank's approval equals affordability. Those are completely different calculations. Maybe your income rises. Maybe prices fall to $380,000. Maybe you relocate somewhere $500,000 buys, something reasonable. But right now, at current prices and incomes, the math is broken for most. So stop focusing on what you qualify for. Focus on what you can truly afford without turning your life into a financial tightrope act. Find the number that allows you to pay the mortgage, maintain the home, save for emergencies, invest for retirement, and occasionally live without money stress. For most people, that number isn't $500,000. You're not less successful for being realistic. You're not failing adulthood by refusing to drown financially for granite countertops. The housing market may keep pretending these prices make sense. Banks may keep approving questionable loans. Agents may keep insisting it's a great time to buy. But you don't have to join collective financial insanity. Sometimes the smartest move is recognizing the game is rigged and choosing not to play.